Good morning, I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you
Sometimes we agree.
think. Sometimes we
This
don't.
is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines.
The Supreme Court has formally released its resolution denying Senator Bato de la Rosa's petition for a temporary restraining order against his ICC arrest warrant.
The Ombudsman moves to bar Senator Rodante Marcoleta, former Congressman Mike Defensor, and two others from leaving the country over a plunder case.
Minority senators deny any CONAS talks, saying there were no discussions on charter change, term extension, or a no election scenario.
Rescue operations at the collapsed building in Angeles City have been suspended after authorities said no further signs of life were detected beneath the rubble.
First in the news, the Justice Department issues a request to lawyer Jimmy Bondoc to provide the agency with the whereabouts of Senator Bato de la Rosa. For the details, mobile journalist Arles de los Santos is reporting live on the ground. Arles, go ahead.
Angela at Diego, 12 araw nga mula nang pumuslit mula sa Senado. Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa, hindi pa rin malinaw o tukoy ang lokasyon nito matapos ngang kumpirmahin ng DOJ mismo na enforceable at valid ang warrant of arrest laban kay de la Rosa mula sa International Criminal Court. Kaya nga nagbigay na or padala ang DOJ ng formal letter or request kay Attorney Jimmy Bondoc na legal counsel de la Rosa na magbigay ng impormasyon patungkol sa kinaroroonan ng senador para nga makatulong doon sa patuloy na pagsisilbi ng warrant of arrest laban kay de la Rosa dahil nga may mga umuugong na balita na alam nito kung nasaan si de la Rosa bilang abogado nito, pero matatandaan din natin na sinabi ni Bondoc nang makita natin ito doon sa Senado just hours after lumabas si de la Rosa kasama si Senator Robin Padilla ay ini-invoke nila yung kanilang lawyer and client privilege na hindi raw pwede sabihin kung nasaan nga si de la Rosa. Ang posisyon dyan ni Acting Secretary Frederick Vida ay kailangan makipagtulungan si Attorney Bondoc sa mga otoridad at ito na yung pagkakataon para nga gawin ito. At hindi rin daw pwede igit yung lawyer client privilege dahil nga patuloy at verifiable and kabukod dyan yung isiniserve nga yung warrant of arrest laban kay de la Rosa mula sa ICC.
Arles, I remember sa unang press conference ni SOJ Vida, sabi niya when wala nang balakid or legal obstruction to serve the warrant of arrest kay Bato, they will also compel or request the Senate to turn over Senator de la Rosa back to them because initially the responsibility was with the Senate. May coordination rin ba at this point ang Department of Justice sa Senado?
Meron, Diego, kaugnay ng investigasyon na isinasagawa nila sa mga pangyayari sa Senado mula May 11 hanggang 13 nitong 2026. At actually, kaugnayan ng barila na nangyari, particular noong May 13, na sinasabi nga mismo na base sa Special Panel of Prosecutors nagbigay na ng ilang mga subpoena ang DOJ para nga ibigay yung mga impormasyon kagaya na lamang meron tayo dito yung tinatawag nating mga firearms and explosives na nandun sa kanila na kaugnay yung mga ginamit ni Sergeant at Arms Mau Aplasca doon. Gayon din yung listahan ng mga records or activity logs ng Senado that time dahil nga patuloy yung kanilang investigasyon doon. Pero particular, Diego, doon sa ita-turn over or ibibigay ng Senado kapag dumating doon si Senator de la Rosa, hindi yan nabanggit dito sa press conference ngayong araw.
Will the same questioning be applied to Senator Robin Hood Padilla, who was last seen with Senator Bato de la Rosa?
Actually, Angela, kasama sa mga tinanong yan dito sa press conference kasi makailang ulit ng araw na inamin ni Senator Robin Padilla na sa mga tanong sa kanya, yung iba nga parang guessing game pa yung nangyari doon kung kasama nga ba talaga siya sa lumabas kasama si Senator Bato de la Rosa pero hindi na nabigyan naman masyado ng focus sa press conference dahil may mga inamin naman na daw sa Senator Robin Padilla at iniimbestigahan ng DOJ ang bagay na yan pero may mga paalala pa din na kung sino nga yung pipigil sa pagsaserve ng warrant or obstruction of justice ay may mga karampatang parusa na pwedeng harapin ang sinuman.
And Did they also check? Kasi may mga kumalat din information over the weekend na may grupo nagsasabi nasa New York si Senator Bato de la Rosa. So did they check ng DOJ kung meron ba sa Bureau of Immigration kung meron bang record doon kung nakalabas na ng ibang bansa si Senator Bato?
So for Angela, naging limitado yung DOJ doon sa kanilang tugon patungkol sa like kung meron bang coordination sa mga backdoor or mga border natin kasi ibang agency na no and they want to give that to them. Pero at least for them, meron sila sa DOJ kay Secretary Vida, meron siyang panawagan kay Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa. Aniya, dati itong Philippine National Police Chief, alam niya ang bigat at kaukulang bigat no ng warrant of arrest kapag ito ay isinuserve nga, kaya nananawagan siya dito na sumuko na lamang at makipag-cooperate nga dito. No? Pero syempre, malaking tanong kung paano nga ba maisaserve yung warrant of arrest kay De La Rosa na ngayon ay hindi pa rin tukoy kung nasaan nga ang lokasyon nito.
Arles, si Senator Bato has been tagged as armed and dangerous. No? It's not a common tag sa mga fugitive kasi but this time around may nakita ata sila he had several arms during the recent period na na-purchase niya licensed firearms. No? Ano yung treatment ngayon ng NBI dito pag armed and dangerous ang isang suspect?
We cannot confirm kung paano yung magiging pag-handle ng NBI kapag armed yung isang suspect, Diego. No? But at least for the part ng DOJ sa press conference kanina, kasama nga doon sa mga hinihiling na ipakansela ng NBI at least on their part, no? Yung mga firearms nga nito, no? Na bilang natin parang nasa 118
So,
ata na mga firearms.
So Arles,
and nakita na rin natin yung...
Arles, yung cancellation was directed towards the PNP?
Yes, the PNP Firearms and Explosives Office kasi sila yung nag-handle nito. No? And parang kahapon inaasahan, nahihilingin na nga yung cancellation nito but we will still wait and see.
Alright, sige. Maraming salamat, mobile journalist Arles de los Santos. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court has issued its resolution officially dismissing Senator Bato de la Rosa's petition seeking a temporary restraining order or TRO against his ICC arrest warrant. Here's the report.
Grace Nancy de la Rosa, the wife of Senator Bato, has made an appeal to the judiciary, and that is to keep her husband, senator, in the country and have him face a local court instead of allowing him to be flown to The Hague. Mrs. De La Rosa implored the High Tribunal on social media. There, she said that permitting the surrender of another Filipino citizen to the International Criminal Court after former President Rodrigo Duterte would be tantamount to admitting to an incapability to handle Bato's case. Nancy called on SC justices to make a quick and conclusive decision regarding De La Rosa's arrest warrant issued by the ICC, and even compared the situation of her husband to that of their Tatay Digong. She said lessons should be learned from what she called the Duterte case. She asserted that unlike these days, when Filipinos are being forcibly turned over overseas, Duterte, while president, had gone to great lengths to bring all Filipinos overseas home, including convicts. On May 21, the Supreme Court refused to issue a temporary restraining order as requested in Senator De La Rosa's petition seeking to bar the enforcement of the ICC arrest against him. Upon studying both arguments from the petitioner and the Office of the Solicitor General, the High Court ruled De La Rosa's camp had not been able to identify his particular rights, threatened and needing protection. A day after the S's ruling, the Marcos government ordered law enforcement to proceed with the implementation of the ICC warrant. Until now, the Philippine National Police and the National Bureau of Investigation are still pursuing the senator since he went into hiding again after May 14. NBI Chief Melvin Matibag now considers Bato to be quote armed and dangerous under existing NBI protocols. The former Duterte PNP chief is also now considered by authorities as a fugitive from justice. But De La Rosa's lawyer Israelito Torion clapped back at Matibag's assumption, saying there is no basis to consider his client a threat.
Before a person can be declared a fugitive from justice, number one requirement is that there is a Philippine court warrant of arrest or there is a court conviction Philippine court. The fact that this is an internal court, this is a case of first impression. So therefore, the concept of fugitive from justice does not apply.
On Monday, May 25, Matibag said the NBI is planning to write a formal letter to the PNP to cancel the licenses for firearms registered to De La Rosa. Matibag said based on their investigation, the ICC wanted senators owns several firearms, all with address in Davao. Meantime, the Mayors for Good Governance slammed De La Rosa's 7-month absence from the Senate while still allegedly receiving his salary. De La Rosa had been skipping sessions since November 2025 before appearing for a day or two this May at the upper chamber. And for GG compared De La Rosa to most Filipino workers who are under a no work no pay rule. Only if an ordinary employee went absent for weeks or months, he would already be suspended or even terminated.
The Philippine National Police is currently reviewing the firearms registered under Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa. In an interview with a Big Story, Public Information Office Chief Colonel Allen Ray Co said a board under the Civil Security Group is assessing whether Senator de la Rosa's firearm licenses should be revoked. Co emphasized that the PNP remains committed to enforcing the law fairly and impartially. He added that authorities will carry out their mandate regardless of whether the individual involved is a former chief of the National Police Force.
I can assure you na meron pong mga registered firearms talaga kay Senator Bato. And as to the license po niya, the board under the CSG, yung pong firearms license revocation and restoration board, ay already convening to look into yung of the reputation po ng license niya.
The Office of the Ombudsman has asked the Sandigan Bayan to issue a precautionary whole departure order against Senator Rodante Marcoleta, former Congressman Michael Defensor, and businessman Joseph Espiritu and Aristotel Viray. The request was made through a verified ex parte application after the four were charged with plunder, indirect bribery, and violation of Presidential Decree Number 46, which prohibits gift giving to public officials. The request aims to prevent the four individuals from leaving the country while proceedings related to the case are ongoing.
Joining us now is Attorney Paulo Tamase, Associate Dean of the UP College of Law. Attorney, thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning, and to your viewers.
All right, Attorney, let's get right to it. Can you explain to us ano po ang isang precautionary whole departure order? Ano pagkakaiba nito sa actual whole departure order?
So, dahil sa developments in the Supreme Court in the late 2010s, we have several orders now which, all of which will prevent an individual from leaving the Philippines because of a criminal case. There is the whole departure order which is issued by the court when there is already a case filed with the court. A precautionary whole departure order, on the other hand, is applied for by the Department of Justice, or in this case, the Ombudsman, when there is a criminal investigation ongoing, but that there is a risk that the person may leave the country.
And of course, this one was, hindi naman ito po pwede rin ibigay kay Senator Bato de la Rosa. On the other hand, because wala naman po siyang local case here, tama po ba?
Yes, so there's no local case for him. It will be difficult for the DOJ or the Ombudsman or Philippine authorities in general to file a whole departure order case versus him.
Well, dito po sa sa naging kaso po ngayon ay kinakaso against Senator Marcoleta et al. Ay usapin po ng bribery at nagiging matagal po na diskusyon ito doon sa election code po ng COMELEC dahil po parang ang sinasabi po kasi dito hindi parang kaparehas din po kay Senator Chis Escudero yung corporate veil, kumbaga individual, hindi siya kasama doon sa kumpanya. Can you tell us more about it?
So based on the what I understand from this case, the original charge versus Senator Marcoleta was supposed to be violation of election expenditure or violation of the Omnibus Election Code. But the COMELEC has already dismissed that case on the defense of Senator Marcoleta na hindi naman na siya kandidat or hindi pa siya kandidato at the time that he received the amounts from individuals. But the natural consequence of that is if hindi ka kandidato and you receive a certain, or in this case, a significant sum without any explanation from a person who is not connected to you, then there might be an exposure to bribery or because of the amount involved, no plunder. So yun ang naintindihan ko na kinaso ng ombudsman kay Senator Marcoleta.
Okay, well, moving on to Senator Bato naman, regard yung official resolution sa TRO, no, attorney. Now that may TRO and pending pa hinihintay natin yung decision on the main issue or the main case, ano po ang legal remedies aside from waiting for the main case, which alam naman natin may take a while before i-resolve the Supreme Court? Ano ang recourse ng team nila Bato?
Well, that's precisely it. The denial of a TRO, denial of a temporary restraining order, that only means that we're still waiting for the ruling on the main case. But in the meantime, the court is not going to stop the parties from their best interpretations of the Constitution or applicable laws. So, effectively, kung ano ho yung pwedeng gawin ng parties, for example, implementing the warrant of arrest, hindi po yung pinipigil ng Korte Suprema as of the meantime. On Senator Bato's side, I understand that they intend to file a motion for reconsideration. Isa naman po yun sa mga remedies na pwedeng ihain kung na-deny po yung TRO. And I think yun po yung pinakamabilis na pwede huli lang hingin from the court. That said, based on the explanations yesterday, and you had 9 opinions in addition to the main court's resolution, 5 of those opinions or separate opinions are in dissent, 4 are in favor. I'm di po ako sure, no, if unless makakapagpakita po sa rin ni Senator De La Rosa ng something that the court got wrong or facts that they did not appreciate, although the court said hindi siya trier of facts, kung mag-grant po yung motion for reconsideration. But ayaw po natin pangunahan yung korte dun sa decision na yun.
Pero based sa resolution, attorney, parang sinabi rin ng Supreme Court na parang the camp of Senator Bato failed to state kung anong right mismo ni Senator Bato ang nava-violate. Parang walang nakikita, no? And with that, would you interpret that as possibly when they make a decision on the main issue, it might go against Senator Bato?
I don't think so. If we look at the vote is 951 of the 9. Only 4 have written separately. And I think gave some indication kung ano at least yung position nila as of the moment with regard to the International Criminal Court proceedings. But 5 of the 9 did not issue separate votes, if my count is correct. So that means that narrow lang po yung denial ng TRO.
Okay.
There are generally 4 requirements for the issuance of a TRO. The first is a clear legal right. The second is material violation of that right. Yung third is urgency, right? Of irreparable injury, and the fourth is no plain, speedy, adequate remedy. The most significant discussion of the court turns to the lack of a clear legal right. So hindi po ibig sabihin na walang right si Senator Bato. It just means that dahil pending pa ho yung main case, yung argument po niya ng karapatan naka-hinge necessarily doon sa mga issue na hindi pa dinedesisyon ng korte. So they include, may jurisdiction pa ba yung ICC? Will RA 9851 apply? Kailangan ba dumaan sa local court? All of these issues, hindi pa ko nagde-decide. I think in one of the clips before this interview, Attorney Torion said na parang of first impression, which precisely means dahil hindi pa siya na-rule ng court, hindi pa malinaw kung may doon karapatan si Senator Bato. So doon po I think nag-fail yung TRO application.
So, okay, so right now, ang TRO po ay wala, hindi po na-grant kay Senator Bato de la Rosa. And we all know that there are possible TRO arrest warrant, no? ICC arrest warrant daw, na maaaring ma-release, hindi natin alam kung kailan. So ito po ba ay enforceable na din given na wala pong TRO kay Senator, or maaaring din mag-seek ng TRO yung ibang maaaring mabigyan ng ICC arrest warrant?
I think that because walang na-issue na TRO denial, yung Philippine government can keep to the position that it has had, which has emerged only quite recently, no, na they do have the power and authority to implement ICC warrants. Lately lang po lumabas yan. It's a 2-week-old position since for the longest time, hindi naman po articulated yung position ng executive department. That means that if may further warrants to be released and to be sent to Philippine authorities, then they can keep the same posture. Pareho lang po yung position nila dun kay Senator Bato. Of course, that means that one, pwedeng mag-file ng further TRO applications yung other persons, alleged co-perpetrators in the war on drugs. Ibig sabihin din po na that they might need to file their own petitions with the Supreme Court. Kasama na po yung TRO application doon. When that happens, there will be some pressure on the court to decide on the main case kasi whether we like it or not, related po lahat ng issue. As early as the petitions for habeas corpus that were filed against President Duterte. No? At least one of the issues there would be ano po ba talaga yung power ng ICC, ano po yung effect niya on the requirement of a warrant in the Philippine Constitution, can they be reconciled, etc. All of these issues tali po. So kung may parating pa ko na investigation, it certainly does help for the court to decide sooner than later.
Now that you mentioned it, Attorney, no, yung habeas corpus, we spoke with Attorney Sal Panelo yesterday. Dapat daw ang ginawa kay Senator Bato nila, Attorney Torion, is file for a habeas corpus immediately. Ano po ang pagkakaiba nito sa ginawa ni Attorney Torion?
I think with respect, hindi ko makita how a habeas corpus petition would prosper. Usually, a habeas corpus petition is filed against, and hopefully I'm stating the law accurately here, is filed against a person with authority under whom one is being detained. So it's a person with custody over the person subject of the habeas corpus. And in this case, Senator Bato was not under the custody of law enforcement or under the custody of the executive. In fact, when he was in the Senate, he was under the quote-unquote protective custody of the Senate. So kanino po isasampa yung kaso? No? Baka hindi din po siya ganun ka-effective. Although the benefit kasi of a habeas corpus is expedited yung hearings niya.
Yes.
But that said, dahil yung remedy po, kasi sa habeas corpus is, yung una pong remedy doon, ipagpapaliwanag po yung officer na nagde-detain kung bakit po niya din-detain yung tao at ano po yung circumstances. So hindi naman po pwede yun isend sa Senado kasi cooperating po si Senator Bato with the Senate. He asked for the Senate's protective custody. So hindi ko makita actually kung saan or kung how it will play out.
Ang sinabi ni Attorney Sal, mag-i-file against the NBI, although wala yung physical custody daw, but parang ang sinasabi niya rin, i-restrict daw ang liberty to move ni Senator Bato because of the NBI trying to enforce an invalid warrant. Parang ganun ang explanation niya.
I can see the creativity with the argument, but respectfully, parang it doesn't really tie with previous cases of habeas corpus. In previous cases, there is actual custody of the person subject of the habeas corpus petition. And I think even during the standoff, supposedly, hindi naman natin masabi I mean, the Senate wasn't actually admitting that Senator De La Rosa was there. Even nung umalis na siya from the Senate, hindi naman nila inamin na umalis na siya. So for all intents and purposes, hindi actually alam ng NBI that this person was even under their custody. So parang hindi ko sure kung magpi-play out yung argument na yun. In any event, all of this said, mabadali po kasi mamut ang habeas corpus petition. The moment that the person escapes the custody of the officer for whatever reason, there's a risk na mamut po yung petition. Kasi wala na pong ipag-uutos yung korte, nakalaya na po.
That's right.
Oh, exactly. And I think that legal remedy or legal option is banking on na magiging in favor doon kay Senator Bato yung magiging ruling ng Senate. Kasi if not, ay nandoon na sa harapan ng korte si Senator Bato. If they deny yung kanyang habeas corpus, pwede na siyang hulihin right there and there. Tama po ba?
Yes, kung nandun naman na po siya, right?
That's
parang too
risky
late
also
na by
for
that
them.
time. Yes, and I think it goes back to the TRO, the opinions of the court in the TRO denial. Of course, preliminary lang po yung views ng justices natin doon. But there were suggestions na parang mahirap naman mag-grant ng relief na hinihingi kung wala po sa harap nila yung tao na humihingi.
Exactly.
No? And may ganun na certain fairness involved here. kung hihingi po kasi ng aid si Senator Bato from the courts, then part of it involves subjecting himself to the legal processes. But at the moment, hindi po kasi natin alam kung nasaan po siya. No? Hindi din po dinidisclose kung nasaan na po siya ngayon. So parang mahirap naman po bigyan ng ganong kind of relief yung tao na parang namamangka sa dalawang ilog
Right.
yun na magpa-participate lang siya dun sa legal na proseso sa Pilipinas kung papabor sa kanya yung desisyon. So may ganun din po na fairness aspect involved.
Well, I would always hear ang kampo po nila Senator Bato de la Rosa na dapat dumaan sa local court. Okay, for the sake of argument, Attorney Paulo, padaanin natin sa local government. What happens then?
Local court.
Local court. What happens? Di ba hindi po ba parang babasahin lang naman yung case sa kanya and then magpo-proceed? Ano po ba mangyayari if dumaan sa local court?
So, two difficulties po. No? The first is the Supreme Court issued rules on extradition last year. I think last year or 2 years ago, around the time actually na na-arrest si President or na-surrender si President Duterte. Those rules, if you read them, do not account for warrants issued by an international court. They often refer to a foreign court. And important po yung distinction na yun kasi yung foreign court po, let's say, as a particular example, courts ng United States, wala po yung kapangyarihan over our courts. Yung courts po natin hindi required to give effect immediately to the decisions of those courts kasi magka-equal sovereignty po yan eh. Pagpantay po sila sa international law. Pagdating naman doon sa issue ng ICC warrant, hindi po kasi foreign court yun, no? International court po siya. It doesn't mean that yung ICC may power siya over the Supreme Court and di rin may power yung Supreme Court over the ICC. What the main difference is that in our Constitution, we agreed to incorporate generally accepted principles of international law, and we also agreed to transformation in Article 7, Section 21, which says na yung mga treaties na sinang-ayunan natin, bahagi na yan ng batas natin. No? Kasi part siya ng international obligations natin, which we commit to in our Constitution. That means that if part tayo ng Rome Statute during the relevant time and we continue to have residual obligations even if we've left the Rome Statute, then we are required to give effect to the warrants that are issued by the ICC. So malaki po yung difference nila no, na on that first point. Yung second point, quick point is, wala pong rules na nag-a-apply for this particular case kay ICC, dun sa enforcement ng ICC warrant. And tama po yung suggestions in some of the concurring opinions yesterday na hindi naman po pinakda ng Constitution natin, or it could not have been the design na dahil international criminal court na yung nag-issue, parang may second chance to prove yung inaaresto, no? Yung proper place po for that person to contest the validity of his arrest, yung grounds against him, and to prove his innocence ultimately is in the international forum with the ICC, hindi na po with our court. So may ganun po na counting difference, or actually hindi counting, no, significant differences yung International Criminal Court process or the ICC process at yung normal extradition process natin with the courts of another country.
Okay, and Attorney, of course, I'd like to ask you itong isang contentious issue na pinag-uusapan ngayon. Tagging nila kay Senator Bato as a fugitive from justice and is armed and dangerous. What do you make of that, Attorney?
So first, the TRO denial doesn't say na fugitive from justice siya. No? The Solicitor General in her comment, I think 2 weekends ago, suggested na yung fugitive disentitlement doctrine would apply to Senator Bato. Very briefly for your viewers, that simply means na yung korte hindi na pakikinggan yung partido, parang wala siyang standing sa tapat ng korte na yun hanggang handa siyang humarap.
Okay.
So he cannot seek relief from that court until the time that he applies or appears to that court. Hindi naman po ni-rule ng korte yung kahapon. No? Very narrow po yung ruling nila sa TRO denial. But on a second point po, and therefore kung ang pinag-uusapan natin ay pugante, fugitive po ba si Senator Bato, in how we normally understand it, I think you have a case for either side, for both sides. Maybe in law, hindi po malinaw, no, na fugitive siya, but certainly if pinag-uusapan lang natin is currently malayo ba siya from the arm of the law, na kaya po ba siyang pasagutin or ipanagot ng mga proseso natin, hindi po siya mahuli at hindi po siya makita So kahit pa paano may sense po yung characterization na fugitive po siya currently.
And what is this armed and dangerous na tinag sa kanya ng NBI? Pwede ba gawin ng NBI yan, attorney?
Well, wala naman pong batas na nagbabawal, no? But I think yung armed and dangerous is simply part of what the NBI does from a law enforcement angle na iba po kasi yung fugitive na hindi lang humakita ng NBI dun sa fugitive na baka manlaban yan kung makita ho ninyo. So it's just a signaling on the law enforcement side. In terms of legal effect, availability of processes, etc., wala naman po necessarily effect yung pagiging armed and dangerous. So it's more on the law enforcement aspect.
Attorney, I'd like to ask lang kasi may isa pa ako nakikitang pinag-uudebatehan online regarding RA 9851, no? That the country may surrender to the international court. Now, a question ko is, if we were never hypothetically a member of the ICC and the ICC deemed that somebody had committed crimes against humanity, can a government hypothetically turn over this person kahit walang residual obligations?
Tentatively, I think you can make the case na hindi po pwede. No? Kasi yung RA 9851 doesn't really, I mean, it's still subject to constitutional rules. For example, on the warrant requirement, no, or extradition processes as part of due process. Parang pasok pa rin naman po doon. I think other academics would have a different view. But from a purely constitutional angle, parang kaya, maintindihan ko po, yung argument na hindi po enough yun kung hindi po tayo member ng Rome Statute. But importante po kasi na we were a member to the Rome Statute. And may residual obligations tayo to enforce or to ensure na yung processes on investigations begun when we were still members ay masundan din po natin.
Yeah.
I think on another point, in the particular case of the ICC, baka may narrow po na exception for the ICC because yung RA 9851, nauna pa ho yan before tayo pumasok sa
Yes.
Rome Statute. So ibig sabihin po na the legislators may have precisely contemplated this situation. So if it's an international court in general, baka hindi po in the general case, but the unique circumstances of the ICC now, both our entry into the treaty, pati yung legislative history
Yes.
natin, I would suggest na baka pwede po, no, kahit wala pong warrant.
But I have a very
Domestic warrant.
Oo. I have a very quick question before we let you go, attorney. Kasi doon po sa Rome Statute na 9851, nakalagay po may, diba? The government may coordinate with the International Criminal Court. I was wondering nga po kasi na, let's say for example, sa susunod na administrasyon at medyo friendly po or hindi po siya sang-ayon doon sa ICC, magiging iba rin po yung interpretasyon. That's why how significant po yung magiging ruling ng Supreme Court on this na talagang eventually this will help us talaga know our obligations to the International Criminal Court.
So, two quick points. The first is, babalikan po natin yung comment ng Solicitor General. I think one of the things na ina-argue po nung gobyerno natin ay the enforcement of an ICC warrant rests with executive discretion. Kung gusto natin ipasagawa yan, then RA 9851 recognizes because of the language na parang prerogative ng gobyerno natin kung susunod tayo dun sa mga warrant processes. Or sorry, kung i-implement natin yung warrants of an international court.
Government means president.
Yes, the executive. Kasi sa gobyerno po natin, yung presidente po ang chief of foreign of foreign policy.
That's right.
Siya po yung sole architect of foreign policy. So if part of foreign policy involves complying with international law, international legal processes, then the suggestion of the OSG's comment is that the court should not stand in the way of that foreign policy. But a second point po siguro regarding the court's upcoming impending main decision on the main case is certainly it will provide some clarity. I think regardless of your political side, ang trabaho lang naman po ng academics maging objective and truthful on this. Mahirap po yung case, no? Hindi po siya ganun kasimple. And of course, the parties will say na, there's the law is clearly in their favor or the law is clearly on the other side. Pero parang ito po kasi yung case ng ICC. Nasa intersection po to ng international law and domestic law. And you don't get that many cases, no? So naintindihan naman po natin na difficult yung kaso. I think may law po na mag-a-apply based on my own study, the study of other academics. There is currently a position forming. But hindi po ibig sabihin nun na hindi makakatulong yung clarity from the court. This might be one of those situations where, particularly given how politically charged yung ICC, a fair, objective, well-balanced judgment from the court might actually clarify what it means for us currently as a country that has left the Rome Statute but has residual obligations to the International Criminal Court.
Ayun. Alright. Maraming salamat po sa inyong oras and of course sa inyong insights. Attorney Paolo Tamase, Associate Dean of the UP College of Law. Good morning and thank you so much.
Good morning and thank you.
Hirap talaga nun no? Kailangan talaga yung decision
Maganda
ng
kasi
korte.
yung-
Kasi mamaya pag iba na yung presidente, pwedeng iba rin yung interpretasyon niya.
Pero yung court remains the same.
Yeah.
So ayun. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Alright.
Alright, we'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. The Senate floor turns heated after Senator Amy Marcos links minority senators to alleged chacha and no election talks. Here's the report.
The Senate has released more committee lineups following the leadership shakeup that installed Alan Peter Cayetano as Senate President. Senator Jingo Estrada and Rodante Marcoleta were named vice chairpersons of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee. Marcoleta was also appointed vice chairperson of the Senate Energy Committee, with Senators Bongo Robin Padilla, Estrada, Amy Marcos, and Joel Villanueva serving as members. The Finance and National Defense Peace Unification and Reconciliation Committees will include all senators except the Senate President and those serving in ex officio capacities. Estrada and Mark Villar were also named members of the Youth Committee. Meanwhile, Camille Villar was appointed vice chairperson of the Committee on Sustainable Development Goals, Innovation and Future Thinking, alongside members Mark Villar, Padilla, and Villanueva. Under the Ways and Means Committee, Senator Go, Escudero, Estrada, Marcoleta, Marcos, Camille Villar, and Villanueva were likewise named members. At the same time, criticisms against the Cayetano siblings continued to surface. Katrina Ponce Enrile slammed Senator Pia Cayetano over her emotional "Kumusta" statement on the Senate floor. In a statement, the daughter of former Senator Juan Ponce Enrile said Cayetano's attempt to ease public anger did not appear genuine. Katrina added that some moments call for silence, restraint, and humility rather than explanations. In a statement, Pablo Virgilio Cardinal David criticized Alan Peter Cayetano over his remarks describing the bloody drug war as a human rights and pro-life campaign. David said such statements disregard the victims, including widows and orphans of those killed without due process. Meanwhile, minority senators also took aim at Amy Marcos. In a privileged speech, Marcos spoke of alleged discussions involving minority senators on charter change, possible term extensions, and even no election scenarios. Senator Mig Zubiri immediately moved to strike Marcos's video presentation from the official records, calling it propaganda. Senator Tito Soto seconded the motion and said that, while he and House Speaker Boji D are golfmates, they never discussed charter change.
Diba, may panindigan po kami lahat dito, Madam President. So therefore, you can see my passion on this. I move to strike the horrible propaganda video.
I really take offense. I take exception to what was presented. But I don't care about what the other mention or the other things that were mentioned. But as far as the issue of my involvement in Chacha is concerned, I vehemently deny. Definitely, I have nothing to do with that. And I second the motion of Senator Zubiri that the editorial video should be stricken off the record.
All right, for more updates from the Senate, we have our mobile journalist Merimon Reyes. Siyempre, Merimon, ang tanong dyan, kamusta na ang mga temper ng ating mga senador? Kalmado na ba dyan?
Well, Angela Diego, good morning. Makikita natin yung kung ano magka-transpire sa mingling ng mga senador later sa session around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Pero kahapon kasi, nung ang pinaka-ina-anticipate talaga ng lahat, even us from the media, ay yung interpellation ng mga senador tungkol sa manifestations and even yung privileged speech ng some minority bloc members last week regarding nga sa calls nila for an in-depth investigation sa shootout incident dito sa Senate 2 weeks ago. Pero that didn't happen. Ang nangyari nga, yung privileged speech ni Senator Amy Marcos, yung pagpe-play ng isang video, and yung pagpapastrike off, which nag-hid naman doon si Senator Amy Marcos. Pero kani-kanina lang, what we saw were posts from Senator Mig Zubiri and Senator Ping Lacson tungkol ito doon sa Inday Badiday remark nila. Kasi kahapon narinig natin ilang mga slang na pagtawag na Inday Badiday raw ba sila. Si Senator Raffy Tulfo nasabi, ngayon lang daw siya nakakita ng video presentation na house show. Pero ang nasabi ni Senator Migs, nag-apologize siya to Inday Badiday's family. And ang sabi niya sa buong pamilya daw of the late Inday Badiday, he was sincerely sorry for mentioning her name during the manifestation sa Senado. Nilerespeto niya raw si Inday Badiday, and like many daw from his generation, lumaki rin daw siya, nakikita siya sa television. Yung frustration daw ni Senator Migs ay directed doon sa video na pinakita sa session floor. Pero he never meant to disrespect yung memory or yung pagre-reduce daw ng legacy ni Inday Badiday. While on the other hand, si Senator Ping Lacson naman, sinabi niya rin, etong si Maria Lourdes Jimenez Carbajal, or popularly known as Inday Badiday, decent person, authentic and truthful, trusted and credible. Unlike kahapon daw sa session na yung peke raw ang source, peke raw ang messenger, at peke raw ang backup. Peke. So far yan yung latest mula dito sa Senado. We'll find out more later in the afternoon kapag nag-start na ulit ang session. Balik sa inyo.
Thank you for that, mobile journalist Merimon Reyes.
The Senate floor turns heated after Senator Amy Marcos links minority senators to alleged chacha and no election talks. Actually, we talked about it earlier. No? Here?
Yung heating sa yung pag-aaway nila.
But this time around, Akbayan Party List has declared its full support for Senator Risa Ontiveros should she decide to run for president in 2028. The party said Ontiveros could be the leader capable of lifting and fixing the nation amid what it is described as a deepening governance crisis, economic struggles, and growing public disillusionment with government institutions. Akbayan said there is a growing call for Ontiveros to become the standard bearer of the democratic opposition, citing her integrity, competence, and long-standing advocacy for reform-oriented legislation. Ontiveros, a multi-term senator, has expressed willingness to seek the presidency if selected as the opposition's unified candidate.
Joining us now is Dennis Coronacion, Chairman of the UST Department of Political Science. Prof. Coronacion, good morning. Thank you for joining us again.
Hi, Prof.
Good morning, Sir Angelo and Mama Angela, and thank you for having me.
Alright, Prof, itong last report namin with Akbayan pushing or declaring early support for Senator Risa Ontiveros at this point, anong significance nito in terms of how the field is panning out? Kasi so far, si VP Sara pa lang ang parang nagparamdam. Ito, Akbayan, nagparamdam for her. For Senator
Kumbaga
Risa.
parang dagdagan ko lang yung tanong ni Diego, Prof. Kumbaga hudyat na ba to na marami na tayong maririnig ngayon in the coming days na mag-declare ng kanilang intent to run for the presidency?
Well, I think so kasi ito yung period na yung those who are aspiring for a higher political office like president or vice president, this is, I think, the perfect time for them to make their presence felt. Ika nga sabi nga ni Senator Risa Ontiveros herself that this is the period that can be considered as part of the informal primaries. So, dito kung mahina ka pa sa surveys, siguro dapat you have to touch base with the, with those outside your reach, your political reach, so that in the next surveys, siguro dapat tumaas naman yung numbers mo, survey numbers mo.
Alright, Prof, ang tanong ko kasi dito, right now, kasi given na wala pang alliances nangyayari, meron tayong 3 significant factions, yung Duterte Bloc, the Marcos Bloc, and the Liberal Bloc. Ang question ito is, if let's say hindi mag-unify si si Senator Risa and si Mayor Robredo, and they declare independently from each other a run for the presidency, sino magbe-benefit dito? Is it gonna be VP Sara or the BBM faction?
Well, if we're going to follow the survey results released recently by the major survey companies, it appears that if it's a head-to-head fight between the vice president and another candidate like Senator Tulfo or the former vice president Leni Robredo, there would be a good chance that these candidates would be able to defeat the current frontrunner in the presidential race. Pero kapag hindi sila unified, and that's the position of Senator Risa Hontiveros, perhaps she's aware of the of the possibility that they're going to be defeated without a common presidential candidate. Then yun ang problema, no? So malabong manalo yung opposition if there would be no common candidate this 2028.
Well, do you see Senator Risa Hontiveros going head-to-head with Vice President Sara Duterte in the 2028 national elections, given na, kunyari, hindi naman na-disqualify si VP Sara?
Well, it depends on if she's going to be chosen by her colleagues, by her fellow liberal party politicians or leaders, as well as the administration, because there are reports saying that a possible coalition is in the works between the administration and the Democratic opposition. So it remains to be seen kung siya yung pipiliin. Kaya nga she's really, I think at this point, she's really working very hard na ipakita that she can be a strong contender too. And the Akbayan, the organization where she belongs, is willing to give yung organizational backing to see to it that the public will notice or will give attention to Senator Risa Hontiveros.
Pero it's good that you mentioned that, Prof, yung sinabi mo na possible alliances ng administration with the Democratic opposition, because we've talked to several members of the Liberal Party, sinasabi nila lagi, we don't know, but...
Tactical.
Oo, di ba sabi nila, whatever it is, the decision will always be coming from whatever, dun sa kanilang principle, di ba?
Tactical alliance daw eh.
Oo. Pero do you see this really... a possibility na talagang mag-unite yung dalawa? Do you see this also people accepting it? Or this would backfire also yung dalawang grupo na yun na saying na okay, for the liberal, for the Democratic opposition, you were saying before, never again to the Marcos administration, pero yet here you are today teaming up with them. Parang ganon.
Yeah, within the liberal party, I think there are some members who do not support the idea of a coalition. Kaya nga float nila kasi may mga may mga deep issues like the one that you mentioned, yung the legacy of the late strongman Ferdinand Marcos. So ang float nilang idea ay kumbaga man yung ganung deep-seated issues, hindi naman yun mag-work to prevent a possible political arrangement that can benefit both sides. So ang sinasabi nga tama si Sir Ange.
Prof? Nawala kayo, Prof?
Prof?
Yes, Prof. Nawala.
Alliance.
Tactical.
Can you repeat that po? Nawala po kayo Prof.
Sabi mo, tama ako.
Okay. Prof, can you hear us okay? Ayun, go ahead.
Tama naman po na yung
Nako. We'll try to fix the line kasi sayang naman yung
Yung
sinasabi
sinasabi
ni
ni Prof.
Prof. And of course, dapat malinaw talaga yung line natin. Let's try that again. Prof, can you hear us okay?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Ayun,
Go,
okay.
Prof.
So,
You were saying.
you were saying...
Yun nga po, dahil may mga, there are some members of the Liberal Party, yung mga hardliners lalo na, no, na ayaw talaga yung idea na magkakaroon ng coalition. But because, of course, hindi pa nasa-settle yung mga deep issues nila eh. At saka, parang matitaint yung kanilang image as a reform-oriented political party or a progressive political party if they're going to have a coalition with the administration party. With the administration coalition. So, I think if there's anything workable or an alternative to a coalition, baka yung tactical alliance
Yes.
na magtutulungan lang sila pero hindi naman talaga sila deeply connected with each other.
Alright, on that note, maraming salamat po muli sa inyong oras, Professor Dennis Coronacion. Thank you and good morning. At this point, let's check the situation over at the House of Representatives. We have our mobile journalist, Amy Atienza. Amy, kumusta dyan?
Good morning, Angela Diego. Ngayong araw, inaantabayan na lang natin kung ano yung mangyayari sa ilan sa mga committee hearings na nangyayari sa merong tayong naririnig na committee hearing pagdating nga sa energy kung saan matatalakay dito yung subsequent red and yellow levels ng ating panahon. So so far wala pa naman masyadong malaking napapag-usapan pero syempre aabangan nga natin kung ano pa yung mga mangyayari dyan. And bukod pa dyan mamaya at around 1 p.m. ay magkakaroon uli ng ethics committee hearing. Ang assumption natin dito ay mapapag-usapan din yung sa case nga ni Cavite Representative Kiko Barzaga. Pero para lang din may konting background, no, Angela Diego, sa mga nangyari din sa Kamara kahapon, natalakay natin dito yung sa panig naman nila pagdating nga dito sa sinasabi at umuugong na balita na Constituent Assembly dahil nga nagsimula ito noon kay Senator Amy Marcos na nasabi din naman noon na ni Representative Egay Erice nga no, na may naririnig na siyang usapan pagdating dito sa CONAS na sinasabi pero ang nasasabi lang din naman daw nung ilan sa mga colleagues niya dito mismo sa House of Representatives ay yung term extension lang pagdating sa Senado pati na rin dito sa Kamara pero wala naman daw nangyayari pa or umuugong na balita pagdating nga doon sa term extension ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos. Pero para sa kanya may possibility daw kasi na kapag sinimulan nga itong Constituent Assembly which also means na yung pagko-convene nga ng special session dito ng Kongreso kasama yung members ng Senado pati na rin ng Kamara para nga maamyendahan yung saligang batas ay sinasabi niya na may possibility marami yung nangyari at may nga din yung term mismo ng Pangulong Bongbong Marcos. Pero nung tinanong din natin si ACT Teachers Party List Representative Antonio Tino, nasabi niya na ito nga nababanggit na CONAS, dapat daw hindi na daw pinapaniwalaan si Senator Amy Marcos at marami pang kinakailangan nga daw pagtuunan pa ng pansin sa Kamara. Tulad na lang din kahapon, nakita natin ay yung naging marcha ng senior citizens para nga doon sa lagda, para 1 milyong lagda para sa matatanda para nga mag-push for the universal social pension and inaabangan pa din natin dito sa Kamara yung pagpapatuloy ng usapin pagdating nga din sa anti-political dynasty bill. So yan pa yung mga aasahan nating mangyari dito mismo sa House of Representatives bukod nga rin sa impeachment. Angela Diego.
Thank you so much, mobile journalist Amy Atienza.
Rescue operations at the collapsed building in Angeles City have been called off after authorities said no more signs of life were detected under the rubble. For the details, let's bring in News 5 correspondent Mon Gualvez live from Angeles City. Mon, medyo parang bad news na ito pero what prompted them to decide this?
Yes, Diego, kahit nga search and retrieval operations na ang focus ngayon ng mga otoridad patungkol nga dito sa nag-collapse na itinatayong hotel dito sa Angeles City, Pampanga, nangako naman ng mga authorities that they will be at least maingat pa rin sa pag-alis ng mga debris na gumuho dito sa area. Ang pinaka nag-prompt kung bakit nag-shift or nag-transition from search and rescue to search and retrieval operations is because wala na raw sila nakitang signs of life dito sa gumuhong gusali. Again, this establishment collapsed Sunday ng madaling araw. So more than 2 days na kung sakasakali na naiipit or pinangangambahan na trap dito sa mga rubbles, yung mga tao, aabot pa rin sa 18 ang patuloy na hinahanap ng mga authorities. And if you are going to compare it with the previous digits in the past days, parang pabago-bago. In the past, 17, kagabi,
oo.
naging 16, and now, naging 18. No? Kasi nga, bukod sa mga construction workers na unang naitala ng local government, nadagdagan na ito ng ilang mga kaanak na naghahanap ng kanilang mga mahal sa buhay, particularly yung mga vendors na nasa paligid lamang nitong construction site nang mangyari ang pag-collapse or pagbuhunga ng building. Initially, just to share a quick story, until 3 p.m. daw yesterday, nakakita pa sila ng signs of life. Pero in the next 5 hours at sa mga sumunod pang mga oras, patuloy pa rin sila sa ginagawa nilang thermal scanning. Meron din silang ginagawang life locator scanning. At the same time, yung pag-ikot pa rin ng mga K9 units. At doon sa sumunod na mga oras na yon, wala na. Daw sila nakita. Kaya posible raw na yung signs of life na nakita nila nung alas 3 ng hapon, maaaring ito daw ay matuturing na false positive. Meaning, possible na baka hayop o baka naman kapwa rescuer yung na-detect na heartbeat at saka yung may mga paghinga pa sa ilalim ng rubbles ng ginawa nila kahapon. Kahapon kasi almost the whole day, puro thermal scanning ang ginawa ng mga authorities just to check if there are still signs of life inside dito sa Gumuhong Gusali. So ngayon, dahil nga search and retrieval operations, kailangan na nilang unting-unting alisin itong mga
Debris.
bakal at saka mga bato na tumabon nga dito sa lugar.
So, klaruhin ko mon ha, kahit search and retrieval, they still are not going to use heavy equipment to clear the site, but mano-mano pa rin. Yan ang kasing dinidebate nila on site the other day eh.
Yes, right now, na retrieval operations, mano-mano pa rin daw muna yung pagtanggal nila or pagputol particularly dun sa mga bakal that comprises the scaffolding. Ito kasi scaffolding yung nakapalibot na bakal dito sa Gumuhong Gusali, kaya mas pahirapan talaga silang magiba yung pinaka-konkreto because of the steels na nakapalibot nga dito sa area. Mano-mano pa rin daw. Ibig sabihin talaga meron silang special tool na gagamitin to cut these steels para nga maalis yan, pero gagamit na rin sila ng mga heavy equipment today. Pero gaya nga na sinabi ng BFP, they will be very, very extra careful just to show respect kung sakaling makakuha at makakita ng mga labi dito sa loob ng nag-collapse na structure.
All right, thank you for that, News 5 correspondent Mon Gualvez. And that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again tomorrow. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
And I'm Angelo Castro III. Kapatid, we are one you.
All sides, all the time.